The night they rolled her into the restaurant, the laughter had already been decided. Quiet smiles, hidden phones, a joke dressed up as charity. Because to them, Abigail Turner was never supposed to be taken seriously. She was supposed to be the punchline, the wheelchair girl on a fake blind date with a powerful CEO, a millionaire brought in to play along for a cruel experiment that would give everyone a story to laugh about later. What none of them expected was that this single evening would crack open secrets, expose hearts, and leave grown adults wiping tears they never planned to shed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that restore faith in humanity, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only travel far when kind hearts help carry them. Abigail had learned early how to disappear while still being seen. The accident that crushed her spine at 19 also taught her how quickly people decided what her future would look like. She lived in Des Moines, Iowa, in a small apartment near the edge of the city, where she worked remotely for a nonprofit that helped families navigate hospital bills. Her wheelchair was sleek and well-maintained, but it never stopped strangers from offering pity instead of respect. Her friends, or the people she thought were friends, often treated her like a fragile project rather than a woman with opinions, humor, and unspoken dreams. So when Rachel, a coworker she trusted, excitedly told her about a blind date with someone important, Abigail felt a cautious flutter of hope she immediately tried to bury. She almost canceled that evening. Her hands shook while fastening the bracelet her mother had given her years earlier, a reminder that God had not abandoned her even when everything else fell apart. She told herself this was just dinner, just an experiment in normalcy, even though the nervous energy in her chest warned her she was stepping into something she did not understand. What she did not know was that Rachel and two others had already planned the story they would tell afterward about how they set her up with a rich CEO just to see her reaction. To them, it was harmless fun. To Abigail, it was a fragile thread of dignity stretched thin. Jonathan Hale arrived at the restaurant without the entourage people expected. At 38, he had built one of the fastest-growing logistics companies in the Midwest, turning quiet competence into staggering wealth. His public image was polished, but very few people knew how heavy his success felt. Jonathan had grown up with a younger sister who used a wheelchair after a childhood illness, and he had watched the world reduce her brilliance to limitations. When she passed away years later, he promised himself he would never be the kind of man who measured worth by convenience. He had agreed to the blind date at the urging of a board member, not knowing the cruel undertone behind it, only sensing something uneasy when he arrived and noticed the barely concealed smirks at a nearby table. As the evening unfolded, Abigail braced herself for the usual signs, the awkward glances, the rushed politeness, the way conversations often bent toward inspiration instead of equality. But Jonathan did not treat her like a lesson or a charity case. He listened. He noticed the way her hands moved when she talked about her work, the quiet intelligence behind her measured words, the sadness she tried to mask with grace. He did not ask about the wheelchair until much later, and when he did, it was with genuine respect, acknowledging her strength without defining her by it. Abigail felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest, a sense of being seen without being exposed. What Abigail did not see were the faces of Rachel and the others as the joke began to unravel. They had expected embarrassment, maybe tears, certainly an awkward exit. Instead, they watched the CEO lean closer, not out of pity but interest, as if the world outside the table had faded away. The longer the night went on, the quieter their laughter became. Jonathan noticed them too, the way they whispered and glanced over, the tension hanging in the air like static before a storm. Near the end of the evening, the truth surfaced not through confrontation but through a careless remark that slipped out, a smug assumption that the joke had already landed. Abigail felt the words hit her like ice water. The realization that this night, which had felt so human and rare, was designed to humiliate her, tightened her throat, and burned behind her eyes. Years of being underestimated surged forward all at once. She did not cry, she did not shout. She simply grew very still, as if holding herself together required every ounce of strength she had left. Jonathan understood immediately. The pattern was too familiar, the cruelty too casual. He saw the shame flicker across Abigail's face and made a decision that would change all of them. He did not expose anyone with anger. He did not storm out. Instead, he did something that shifted the weight of the room entirely. He spoke with clarity and compassion, making it unmistakably clear that the only joke in the room was the assumption that kindness could be staged without consequence. He acknowledged Abigail's worth, her intelligence, her dignity, not as a performance but as a statement of truth. He addressed the others not with humiliation but with disappointment, the kind that forces reflection long after laughter fades. Abigail expected the floor to swallow her whole. Instead, she felt something lift. Jonathan did not try to save her. He stood beside her, metaphorically and literally, making it clear that her presence there was not a mistake. The restaurant grew quiet. The people who had orchestrated the evening felt the sting of their own actions, tears forming not from guilt alone, but from the realization that they had nearly crushed something sacred. Rachel's hands trembled as she understood what she had done to someone she claimed to care about. The night ended without spectacle, no grand speeches, no dramatic exits. Jonathan walked Abigail out into the cool Iowa air, where the city lights reflected off the pavement like scattered stars. He did not promise anything. He did not ask for forgiveness on behalf of others. He simply treated her like a woman whose time mattered. For Abigail, that was enough to shift something deep inside her. She went home that night not feeling chosen, but respected. And that distinction changed everything. In the weeks that followed, consequences rippled outward. Rachel apologized with sincerity that could not undo the pain but acknowledged it fully. Others confronted their own casual cruelty for the first time. Jonathan quietly redirected company resources toward accessibility initiatives, not as a publicity move, but as a continuation of the promise he had made long ago. He and Abigail stayed in touch, their connection growing slowly, built on shared values rather than pity or spectacle. For the first time since her accident, Abigail allowed herself to imagine a future not defined by survival, but by possibility. Before we reach the ending, please take a moment to comment below and share what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Abigail's life did not transform overnight. She still faced stairs without ramps, conversations that underestimated her, days when grief returned uninvited. But something inside her had shifted permanently. She had seen proof that respect could exist without conditions, that love and dignity were not reserved for the able-bodied or the unbroken. Jonathan, in turn, found healing in honoring his sister's memory through action rather than regret. The fake blind date meant to humiliate a woman in a wheelchair ended up exposing the hearts of everyone involved, turning laughter into reflection and cruelty into a lesson that would echo far beyond one restaurant in Des Moines. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or reminded you that kindness still has power in this world, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who need hope today.